Welcome to A Few Minutes with, I'm your host, Glenn Wooten. There are a couple of essential things in life, like feeling good and looking good. Our next guest will have you doing both. Today's guest is Michael Humphrey, who's founder and CEO of Allen Michael Designs. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Tell me a little bit about your company.
Well, again, I'm the founder and CEO of Allen Michael's Design, and we specialize in custom suiting, custom shirts, custom neckwear, and custom footwear, as well as accessories. It was a desire of mine after having taken a trip overseas and having had my first suit made for me to give that same feeling to other gentlemen as well who could experience what it was that I felt to have on something that was made especially for them.
Well, that's very interesting because your background wasn't in what you're doing now, which turns out to be your passion.
Right.
So let's go first into, you went to college, got your degree,
Right.
and then you're working for the NFL. I mean, you had an NFL career
Yes.
in management,
Yes.
and then you're into the clothes.
Right. Right.
Talk about what you did with the NFL. How did that work into your journey?
So coming out of school, initially I went into technology, and my background was actually manufacturing. So worked first for Konica Manufacturing in the photo imaging industry, but was a first line supervisor in that role, overseeing the production of photographic paper. And it really helped to build a foundation in regards to understanding manufacturing, understanding taking something from a raw material into a finished product. Right. And as well as it just took away any kind of fears that I had in regards to being in a manufacturing facility or around a plant facility where things were being made. I worked there for 10 years, and in year 8 decided to go back to school and pursue an MBA, and pursued my MBA from Wake Forest University in management. And on graduation day of all things, graduation day, got the call from the NFL headquarters in New York to come and fill a role that they had overseeing the NFL Minority Business Development Program. So I leave North Carolina and moved to New York, moved to Manhattan, which was a big culture shock to say the least, and started working in the special events department of the NFL. And the special events group was responsible for all of the NFL's major events from team to team and the league headquarters as well. So we oversaw everything from team meetings to owners meetings to the combine to the NFL draft to the Pro Bowl, and of course, crown jewel, Super Bowl.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. When I was coming up, I was fortunate to be a part of a group of guys, and we had started a club in New York. So, you know, we wanted to do the club business and everything like that. On the outside, that looks glamorous to everybody. But as you know, what you were doing, it was hard work. Quite
hard work. It was interesting because people outside look at it, look at me in that role, and looked at it as a very glamorous role. And it was just a lifetime experience. It was unbelievable. Allowed me a lot of opportunity, travel and exposure, allowed my family a lot of opportunity to travel. They went to Super Bowl every year. But the interesting thing, they went to Super Bowl and enjoyed it. I went to work.
Exactly.
And in the world of events, as you well know, you wear whatever hat is necessary in that given time. So with my bachelor's degree, with my MBA, it didn't matter. Once you got on site, you could be stuffing bags full of glam for players and sponsors and owners. You could be running some owner or some other VIP around to different appearances that they needed to get to. You could be doing charity events on game day. You could be moving boxes, running people off the field that weren't supposed to be on the field. Whatever it takes to get through that event to make it seamless. Mm-hmm. So our goal in all of it was for all of our guests that were coming to the event, to the game, in the 4 days that preceded it, was for them to move seamlessly from dinners to events to parties to concerts to charity events, whatever it was, without feeling any kind of scene there at all, as well as sitting down watching the game and moving thousands of people onto the field for a halftime show, getting them off in 4 minutes, and getting them back on their planes and out to their given cities.
While you were doing this, while you were in the NFL, did you start doing the clothing business?
I did.
Talk a little bit about that.
I did. Really interesting. As I mentioned, one of the events that we worked on was the NFL draft. It's gotten better from, we would bring in each of the top 5 players in the draft each year. And it's just gotten a lot better in regards to how those guys came to the draft and presented themselves at the draft. So I sat through years of watching the NFL draft and young men coming out to get picked for the various teams that they would go to, instant millionaires, but coming from whatever school they had come from, whatever environment they had come from, and not necessarily presenting themselves in the best way. So I turned them draft suits. So part of one of the things I wanted to do was, in getting into this business, was to be able to clothe, whether it was athletes, entertainers, which are not my primary client base. My primary client base is business people because there's so many more of them. So part of what it is that we're doing with this business is working to make sure that we help gentlemen have the confidence that they need in whatever setting that they're in and present themselves in the absolute best way possible to the world.
Now, when you were doing this, how much did you know about the clothing business? And did you get yourself a mentor? Did you do what kind of research did you do? Talk about that process.
So the business was formally started in 2005, but I can back up to maybe 2000, where the interest had already been there, but I really started doing some research on it. And I went for probably 2 years with the one component that I could not find, which was a manufacturer. I knew a little something about the custom business, having gone through the experience before myself having a garment made for me. But I did not know where to get it done. And again, this goes back to the college education and manufacturing, and knowing that piece was going to be needed, the production piece of it, knowing where sources were to source fabric and other materials that would be needed to produce a garment. So literally there was about 5 years that led up to that 2005 point where it formally became a business. But one of the things I did, like I said, it took about 2 years to discover where to find a manufacturer. I did everything but Google it. I did everything but Google it.
Right.
Went on Google and was living in New York, and sure enough found a manufacturer that was 10 minutes away from where I lived. Called him up, said, I'd love to come out and see your operation and see what you do. I need a manufacturer. I want to go into the custom clothing business, and was wondering if you could give me some insight. He said, you can come, but I'm in a plant. I said, no problem. First 10 years of my career, I was in a plant. Right. No problem at all. So went out, met with him the first day. He taught me how to measure. He is a master tailor still in New York City, very renowned. So I stumbled onto one of the best of the best of the best. And in that one setting, he pointed me in the direction of where I needed to go to get everything I needed to start my business. I was so moved by him that I asked him if I could come back. And for the next 12 months, I went back every Saturday.
So, you said you did everything but Google. But during that time doing everything, that was your preparation for what you got going on now.
Absolutely.
That was your preparation because it made you rely on other than just take the easy route, or, sometimes that's a road that we must go through to get to that path. What kept you from being discouraged? Because some people think, okay, I'll start this business right away. Right. But you said it took you 5 years.
Yes.
To just get from start to second gear.
Right.
Or so.
Right. Again, the prior training that I had owned a small business, a home-based business, selling artwork, my own artwork prior to this business starting. So I had some foundation of what it took to get a business going. Then there was the MBA, the business training, classroom training that came along with it as well. So I knew of some of the components that I needed to get the business going, but still had to learn this industry. So what kept things going was the passion for it. Had always had a passion for fashion that came from my parents. They were born in the 1920s, so these were people who lived through the Great Depression.
Right.
but during the course of the time that my mother and father were in college, these gentlemen that were going through school on the GI Bill were always dressed. These guys didn't have any money. They were always dressed. I posted a picture from my father's senior year, the homecoming game from his senior year at North Carolina A&T. It's 1951. Every guy in the stands at this football game was in a jacket and a hat.
Right.
And the reaction that I got on Facebook when people saw this picture, they just couldn't believe it. Said, you know, look at how these guys are dressed. And again, these are folks with not a lot of money, but it goes to the fact that they just were very conscious about making sure that they were presenting themselves in the best way that they possibly could. And that's something I want to continue on in what I'm doing now. But it was the passion for it.
Yeah, you know, and the point of what you're saying is, if you go back and look at a lot of the other photos, I can go back to days where you see photos of the African American crowd at Ebbets Field or something like that, always dressed.
Right.
Always dressed, you know, and they had the little colored section,
Right.
but the people were dressed. They were dressed to the nine. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so there was always that fashion sense
Yes.
that they had. You go down the journey of starting your business. Now, you're doing good, doing well, but there's some things you had to learn other than just about the clothing and other things. You had to learn about yourself. What did you say you had to learn about yourself? Has that taught you?
It's really perseverance more than anything. Perseverance, drive. The passion has to be there. And I was told that by my mentor. He said, you're not going to get rich quick. It's not going to happen overnight. I tell people that I'm a 10-year overnight success.
Right.
Because it's taken that long to learn the different things that I needed to learn, as well as changing the business model as it needed to change and stay fluid in the business. Mm-hmm. So I sell a luxury product, and when the economy dives, I've got to make adjustments in what it is that I do with my product and how it service my clients. But primarily the perseverance in it. Entrepreneurial life is lonely. It can be a very lonely life. I was blessed to marry an entrepreneur, so who came from an entrepreneurial family. So
Right.
She's constantly pushing and encouraging me in the business and works with me in the business. But it takes a lot of drive. I worked long hours at the National Football League. I traveled while I was doing that as well. Never worked as hard as I am right now in my life, working for myself. There is no marketing department for me to go to and just drop an idea off and they create it and give it back to me.
Right.
I do it. There is no sales team to go out and beat the pavement and call on clients and knock on doors. I do it. There is no legal team. I had to get my own legal counsel, and that was just another part of it in regards to building a team around me of key people. There is no corporate sponsorship team. I have to go out and seek those sort of opportunities where I can. So you wear a lot of hats, and if you're not just really driven, if you don't have a real good work ethic, being able to motivate, encourage, and push yourself, the entrepreneurial life is a tough one to.
Yeah, very, very, very tough. In the fact that you had learned a lot about yourself because you had to do a lot of different roles and do a lot of things. How important was it to have another voice as far as a network of people, a support, and how did you define who was in your network? Because now you have a business and you're creating. You can't just let everybody in.
No, you can't.
So how did you go about vetting and what kind of networks you want to be in?
It's going through a transition over the years. I would say that I vet things much more and better now at 52 than I did at 32. In just being able to get a better sense and a read for people pretty quickly and know who's genuine and who's not. This industry of custom clothing, the fashion industry in general, is not one where there are a lot of African Americans represented there. And then within the custom clothing industry and menswear, again, not a lot of people there. So I would go to trade shows, I would go to conferences, I would call on vendors. And in those settings, I was typically one, if not the only African American represented there. Interesting thing with that though, because this industry of custom clothing or tailoring, master tailoring is an old world art. And it's not something that's being taught to a new generation now. So it's something that at a period of time when these master tailors who are 70 and 80, 90 years old now, when they pass on, it's kind of a lost, it really is kind of a lost art. So the thing that became really interesting to me early on is those older gentlemen that I met, they really had a genuine interest in me.
Right.
Because I had an interest in their craft. And they were willing to give information. They were willing to mentor. They were willing to point me in the right direction. They were still many of them still in business themselves, so they didn't have a lot of time. But the fact that I would go to them, I'd reach out to them, I would call them, I would see them at shows. They were really giving in the information that they gave me. The other thing that I did probably just 2 years ago, again, going back to the fact that there's not a lot of African Americans in this arena, was to reach out through the different social media platforms that I'm involved in, and specifically those other African American custom clothiers that I'd met over the years, reached out to them because I really wanted to start building a network of us. I wanted people to know and understand, my counterparts, my peers in this industry, to know and understand there's enough out here for all of us to make it and do well. In these individuals I'm talking about, some of them were close by, others were in different markets around the country, but I specifically went after them, reached out to them, met them, built relationships with them where we will meet up together at conferences now. Or I'll visit their shops when I'm in their given city, or we will be at trade shows together and we'll make sure we grab dinner and just talk shop. At the end of the day, all of us were encountering some different hurdles and roadblocks and walls and glass ceilings and concrete ceilings and that one another was encountering in their own business. And we needed to do some more talking about it. And it's ended up being just a real blessing. Although we're still competitors, there's a sharing and a giving of information because I like to think in my case, because I was willing to reach out to them, and I provide whatever information, whatever resources that I can. I send clients to them in regions where I'm not working. They send clients to me. So it's been good in that regard, but the circle is the circle is still relatively small.
So what you basically did, you said, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Other than that trap that we normally fall into, you said I'm not gonna allow this to be the crabs in the basket, in the barrel type situation. It's like we're gonna come out and get in front of this, and make sense of it all, which a lot of us still don't do. You know, we'll have the haters. We'll have the people's like, oh, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't do this. But you've taken it and say, okay, let me get in front of this. And let's just make sure that we can work together, because working together will build a stronger team and stronger unity.
Working together definitely builds a stronger team. The haters are still there. I don't encounter a lot of people because, like I said earlier, entrepreneurship can be a really kind of private and lonely experience. You're busy. Because you're wearing so many hats, or you can be, so you're busy. So I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of social time. My true friends understand it. They're encouraging of it. They're pushing me to grow this brand. But with the others, you've got to be very careful, because not so much haters, but the naysayers can be as close as a family member. It can be internal rivalries even within your own family network. When say, well, you know, why are you doing that? Well, you know that'll never work. You know, who do you think you are? You're a fashion designer now?
Right.
And
I equate that as a hater. I do. I know most people say, yeah, it is a naysayer, but it's a hater.
Yeah.
Because the vision wasn't yours. That does not mean that so what you're trying to say, I'm not good at this, I can't do it?
Right.
Because you can't see it?
Right.
You know, so it's kind of a hate. They don't want to say it that way, but it's kind of a hate to me.
It is. You know? And you gotta be thick-skinned.
Right.
You gotta be a strong person. You gotta be laser focused. And it really does have to be a passion to keep you pushing on towards, or you'll start hearing it and you'll start believing it and owning some of that. Well, am I a designer? Am I good enough to ask this price for my product? You really have to be a strong person to move past that and keep on your goal.
Well, you're saying a key thing. So a couple things you say. Well, that right there, I think is confidence. Confidence in your ability, confidence in you. So I think as a daily practice, you got to work on you.
Yes.
Because if you work on you, what they say,
doesn't
bounce
matter.
right up. As you say about the armor, right? Build that
Absolutely.
armor. So we have talked about confidence. We talked about hard work. We talked about the key of networking and having a clean environment around you. What are some of the other things that you, along the way, you hit bumps and bumps, but you can tell somebody, hey, I'm going to tell you, don't do this because X, Y, Z.
Right.
But you know, we're still going to do it. But what would be your advice? Hey, don't. If you want to do this, I suggest this.
Realize from day one that you can't do it by yourself. It requires a team. They may not all be staff. They may not all be paid staff, but you do need those resources around you, that network, that team around you, that when necessary can pull you back out of left field when you start drifting off into a realm that you don't need. The mentors can help do that. You do need the legal help. You do need a great accountant. You need it. Folks will go into business, oh, well, I can do this myself. And when you're still on a smaller scale, you absolutely positively can. The minute it starts to grow, the minute that you need to know some more about tax laws, the minute that you need to know some more about whatever sort of certifications and allowances that are needed for you to do business in a given city, region, state, etc., you need an expert to tell you what those things are. I have key people that I can call on when I'm about to make a major decision to say, what do you think? You need those sounding boards. You absolutely do. The other thing, so building a team from the very beginning, and now there's sources out there from interns to virtual assistants who can really provide some assistance to you growing your business without it being a major expense. Segues into the next thing. You've got to know your cost, every single one of them. For me, I went into the business, I knew the cost of purchasing fabric, I knew the cost of production of the garments, but those were the only two costs that I gave any consideration to. Didn't think anything about shipping, didn't think anything about taxes, didn't think anything about the time and allotting for my time that goes into it. I would travel. When I first got started, I was chasing the dollar. I would travel from coast to coast, and certainly up and down the East Coast, chasing a single client. It doesn't work. I go out and I sell this garment for XYZ price, and before I get home, I'm less than break even from lodging and travel.
Right.
And these were just some things that are really kind of some general business things that I just didn't take into account. So you absolutely positively have to know what your costs are. As an entrepreneur, I went from a very structured corporate environment. Had to be there at 9, was in New York, so missing train traffic and foot traffic. I'd leave about 8 o'clock that each night, 9 to 8. Lunchtime at this time, meeting 9 o'clock in the morning, meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It was very structured, kind of told what to do.
Right.
So you come out of that environment and all of a sudden you're leading your own business and you don't have that structure. It took some time for me to get to a point where I could really manage myself. And one of the key things to that was planning each day. I work from home. So in working from home, it's just a lot of distractions that can pull you. I work from home, I've got 3 kids. So my day starts at 8, it ends at 3 when they're coming home. I've got to get what I need to get done in that time frame. If I don't structure literally every 30 minutes to an hour of that time, it's real easy to get pulled away.
All right, you're giving us some great advice. So, but before I go and let you go, I always do this with my guests. I give you a couple of words, and you give me your feedback on it, okay? Ready?
Okay.
Rejection.
Hard but fair. Hard but fair. Hard to take on initially. It's a part of life. If you're going to succeed in business, you have to understand that you're going to have some rejections and you're going to have some failures if you're successful at it. I tried a lot of different things before I got to this point. Some of them worked, some of them failed, but they all built to this one point.
Adversity.
Adversity builds character and builds strength. Tough when you're in the middle of it, but you absolutely rise above it. It's kind of like an airplane. Airplane is filled with gasoline. It can only elevate and go higher and higher in elevation as the gas passes out of it or is burned up. And with that, similar to adversity in that regard again, it's a weight initially, but through your strength, your growth, your prayer, your faith, you'll rise through it.
Good. Goals.
Absolute must. Absolute must. Without goals and a plan, something concrete, something to shoot for, a plan, you're likely in a hobby and not a business. There's got to be something that you're striving for, or you run the risk of staying status quo.
I like what you just said. If you do it that way, it's a hobby, not a business. You know, you got to make it. You got to live this. You got to live it. And you seem like you're doing it. You're living it. You work it. You work out. You breathe it. You exercise it. I appreciate your time. I think you gave some great sound advice. Like I said, working hard, networking, confidence, building a strong team.
And realizing that you are your brand.
That's where I think a lot falls short. You know, realizing that you're a brand. So I very much appreciate you coming through and giving us some of this great sound advice. Best of luck in your business.
Thank you so much.
All right, this has been Michael Humphrey, owner and founder of Allen Michael Designs. If you want to know more about Michael and this program, please sign up on our Facebook page, A Few Minutes With, or check us out on our social media platform. Again, this is Glenn from A Few Minutes With, and again, achieve your destiny.
And I just spent a few minutes with Glenn on A Few Minutes With, and I'd like to leave you with a few things today. First and foremost, go for your goal. Whatever it is, whether it's becoming an entrepreneur, whether it's striving higher in your own corporate career, whether it's pursuing some other sort of career activity, go for your goal. You've got one life to live. Make sure that you give it everything that you've got. Understand that you are your brand. You are your personal brand. Everything that you do when you go out into the world, it is an expression of who you are and what it is that you represent. Whether it's how you're dressed, whether it's how you act, whether it's your honesty or your integrity, make sure that you're always, always representing your brand. Stay focused. Make sure that you keep your eyes on whatever it is that your prize is, and stay focused and persistent with what it is that you're doing in your life's goals and pursuits. Work hard. You have to have a definitively hard and strong work ethic. It's essential in you achieving the things that you are trying to achieve in this world. And finally, in whatever it is that you believe, stay faithful, stay prayerful, and believe that you can accomplish anything that you set your mind to.